We got the top storylines, the top matchups, and the top prospects for you on this week's edition of Barely Bowl Eligible. Let's get into it.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
We're Barely Bowl Eligible here on KC Sports Network. I'm Tucker Franklin. That's Maddie Lane. Maddie, how you doing, buddy?
You know, we're flying high. We're into the meat of this college football season. It's here. It's time. We're talking, hey, spoiler, we're talking bowl projections. We're talking big news breaking storylines. Not that we're breaking news, but stuff that took the college football world by storm here. Like, we're talking national, playoff, college football playoff implications. We are deep into this right now. And I couldn't be more excited. I love college football. This thing is rolling downhill at this point in time.
It really is. We are on I think there's like 4 weeks left of the regular season, if I remember correctly. Maybe 5 with the bye week.
I think 5?
Yeah, there's 5 weeks. Mizzou has 4 games left, but they're on a bye week this week. That's kind of how I keep track of it. But there's 5 weeks left in the NCAA regular season. Listen, we're starting to get these midweek games too. Once the midweek games start really rolling off and you start to consistently get the midweek games going, you're like, okay, this is it right here. I think we're in the midst of like a stretch of 50 some odd days of football between NFL, college football, and that started like back at the beginning of the month. Maybe even before that into August or September. But it's great. I love watching. I got to watch Georgia State and Georgia Southern face off on a Thursday night instead of watching the awful Thursday night football game. I got to watch real football. When you talk about Georgia Southern,
not like I was recording or anything during all of that. No.
The funniest thing, and I went back and I watched the video that I took, Maddie, of the touchdown that Georgia State scored late in that game, of the jump ball that was the goal line fade that was thrown as a absolute moonshot. And I still laugh every time I see that. But let's get into kind of what we want to talk about, because you mentioned bowl projections. We got bowl projections out. Brett McMurphy from the Action Network out there projecting these games. He does this every week, but now that I think we're getting close. We're a week away from a college football playoff rankings actually coming out. I figured we'd talk about bowl projections, but first I think we need to start with the biggest story in college football that broke. Well, it broke like what, at the beginning of this week, Maddie? It hasn't really been all that long, but more information keeps coming out about the Michigan sign stealing scandal.
It started last week. So it started last week before the games.
Okay.
Is the big ordeal. Yeah, anyway, continue. But yes, it did start already.
I thought that it broke after we had recorded too.
That it might have. All I know is Michigan State changed all their signs and Michigan still blew the doors off of them. So that's all. That's what I remember.
So Michigan is accused of stealing signs. Now that you might be thinking, Tucker, that's not that big of a deal. Teams look over at the sideline all the time and try to decipher what they're doing. In baseball, they do it all the time. Yeah, you're right. But the way that they did it is what's called into question. Connor Stallions, I think is his name, a assistant. I think at one point was a GA as well. He is accused of orchestrating a large network of freelance scouts, we could call them, where he would pay for them to go to these games of just like future Michigan opponents, potential Michigan opponents, Tennessee being one of those teams that were kind of thrown into all of it, paying for their tickets to go there and having them sit on the 50-yard line right directly across the sideline and just like take notes and scout of these teams and what their signals are doing. He put together a 600-page quote manifesto.
The Michigan Manifesto.
The Michigan Manifesto, as he called it, updated it daily. Was out here Venmoing people just openly, using like my Michigan credit card, using his own name to buy tickets and then transfer tickets to people. Just kind of sloppy with it for a guy who was trying to orchestrate this whole thing. And now as more information comes out, obviously some of the stuff hasn't been confirmed, but it's been reported, but not necessarily confirmed quite yet, to even of like TCU being aware. Like teams were aware of what Michigan was doing, and TCU said they had fake signs ready for them when they went to the college football semifinal game. Teams like South Carolina have now been tied into this Michigan cheating scandal as a way to kind of knock Tennessee out of the college football playoff and give Michigan a better run at the title there. So Maddie, I want to get overall your thoughts on the whole ordeal. It seems like each passing day more information comes out about it.
Yeah.
Now there's a rumor about like them trying to hack the Ohio State cloud server to try to get some information from it. Don't know how substantiated that is, but Maddie, your overall thoughts on the Michigan cheating scandal?
My overall thoughts, and I is gonna probably anger some people, is that I don't care. Every college football team steals signs. Every college football team tries to steal signs in every possible way. I imagine the vast majority of the teams that you are familiar with, aka like all of your Power 5 teams, your Blue Bloods, your teams that actually matter, do something similar to what this Stallions character for Michigan was doing. Now, none of them are as dumb as this fella. None of them are using their own personal Venmo or using their own cell phone that can be traced back to them. None of them are writing 600-page manifestos about how the Michigan program should run when he apparently is planning on taking over the Michigan football program at some point in time. I don't know. So like all of that is like its own thing, right? It's like I don't care as much about the sign stealing thing. The only thing that would have rubbed me the wrong way, and we have kind of gotten to this point, is if they were filming practice of upcoming opponents like the week before. And so if they really are hacking into Ohio State's Exos files and getting the footage from their practice, that is kind of where I start to be like, okay, like we really need to do something about this. But
Yeah.
It's been going on forever. Like there's stories going back 20 years of coaches taking practices inside, stopping practices, having security go usher people off that were just watching practice from afar. Like this isn't new. People have been doing this forever. People have been trying to do this forever. And I guarantee you it still happens. There's a reason, in my opinion, that not a single head coach has come out and said anything about it. Like Shiano may have, but I think most people are still like have come out or like have assumed that he was talking about the filming, but I think he was talking about more of Michigan players trying to create false starts by clapping and jumping and like just doing stuff to force false starts, which college football is calling as a penalty this year, right? I think he was upset about that. But even if so, one head coach out of 130 whatever has come out and said something, there's probably a reason head coaches aren't trying to draw more attention specifically to this, because they're doing it too. Like that's where I fall on the whole thing.
I thought it was interesting. I think I sent you this video, Maddie, of Matt Rule at Nebraska was actually asked, they're like, hey, did you get a sense of them stealing your signs? He's like, I don't really want to talk about it, is really what he was saying. He's like, I haven't been asked by the NCAA or any investigators about it yet, so I don't really want to talk about it. So it does seem like that.
Hey, to Matt Rule's credit, as we stand with Matt Rule, all he said was like, hey, why do we do all this stupid sign stuff, not just get headsets? Like we have like 4 people on game day dedicated to wearing different shirts and signing, and some are fake signs, some are real. Why not just spend the money of 3 of those guys and get headsets into these helmets? Like Matt Rule's take was very much right where it should be on the whole thing. And this year in the playoffs or the bowl season or playoffs, I guess they're going to be allowed to use headsets. I think is what I had heard. It's like, I think it's like an option or something. I don't know. You can't quote me on that entirely, but I did hear that rumor. So like maybe we already at the bottom of this because this is silly.
Yeah. He's right too, because you can use technology on the sidelines in high school and you can use it in the NFL, but in college football, for some reason, you can't use technology on the sidelines, which is interesting.
Group of 5 teams don't want to have to pony up for it. I mean, that's legitimately what it is. Teams don't want to have to pony up for the the price. And I'm sure you have paranoid old school coaches that think someone's going to hack into it, which like, okay, but like not everyone's the Patriots and they're stealing your signs anyway. What's it
right.
It's
an interesting story. It's an ever evolving situation. I am a little bit, I think it's a little bit more serious than Maddie thinks it does. But I don't think it's like to span the whole Michigan program or make Harbaugh resign. Fire him. I don't think it's that level. I think they'll get some punishment, but I don't think they're going to be like eviscerated, right? Because as you mentioned, Maddie, it does kind of feel like a commonplace thing. There's just one guy that got caught for it. I'd be surprised if Stallions coaches anywhere ever again, truthfully. because I think he'll be tagged with that for a while. But Maddie, let's move on to some bowl projections. I sent you these this morning when you're looking at just some of the New Year's Six bowl. We're just gonna go over the New Year's Six ones because those are obviously the most interesting ones. We could talk about the Outback Bowl or the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which used to be the Cheez-Its Bowl. Cheez-Its had 2 bowls, now they only have 1. That's sad.
Okay. Would you rather get $100 worth of Outback or $100 worth of Pop-Tarts?
Pop-Tarts. Like, I think that's like a no-brainer for me, truthfully. I could not tell you the last time I went to Outback Steakhouse. So
Okay.
There's probably one around me, I would assume. But I do love their mascot of a bloomin' onion just out there.
Sure.
I love a good bowl mascot. But New Year's Six bowls. Let's start with the Rose Bowl. This is the college football playoff semifinal. This is one of the 2. It's Rose and Sugar this year. This is number 2 versus number 3. Brett McMurphy has Michigan versus Florida State as his projection there. Thoughts on that, as Florida State is the 3 seed in this, Maddie?
Yeah, I think that assumes that Ohio State and Michigan play each other, right? And so that is going to bump one of them out. The other one probably remains 2. I'd be kind of surprised if actually that the winner of the Big 10 doesn't become the 1 seed, right? They seem like Michigan or Ohio State should jump Georgia at that point, but whatever. We'll deal with that later on. So yeah, this is a good matchup. I mean, you get defense versus offense. Florida State's defense is lighting up everybody. Michigan's defense is giving up 0 points. Fun matchup. And then I'll even just take, the Sugar Bowl. They have it right now projected as the 1 versus the 4, Georgia versus Texas. Again, another fun matchup, a future SEC matchup, 2 teams with a lot of talent going against each other. Texas took care of Alabama by simply being more physical. Now they get, Georgia and this projection here. I wanted to ask you though, of those 4 teams, which is the least likely to make the college football playoff in your mind?
Ooh, I think it's Texas. I think it's Texas. I think OU has a better shot of making the college football playoff than Texas does at this point.
Okay. So not pushback, right? I think if Texas wins out, they probably get it. Ooh, they still got to battle a 1-loss Pac-12 championship. It's a little tight for Texas, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. I guess like my only thought on that was if Florida State or Georgia lose, I don't know if they have a path to making it, right? Like they might be completely done with 1 loss, whereas Texas can keep their 1 loss in it. But yeah, no, Texas is probably right there. I would agree with that because they need to not only win out, but then like they still have to handle the Pac-12 1-loss situation, whereas the other 3 teams could realistically be undefeated still at the same time.
Yeah. Looking at these other ones, Maddie, I'll give you the other like 4 of these New Year's Six ones, and I want you to tell me what you're most interested in bowl game matchup wise.
Yeah.
Fiesta Bowl is Oregon versus Air Force. Peach Bowl is OU versus Notre Dame. Orange Bowl is who do you have here?
Louisville. My bad.
Yeah, no, you're good. Louisville versus Ohio State. And the Cotton Bowl is Washington versus Alabama. Which one piques your interest the most?
I can assure you it's not the Peach Bowl of Oklahoma versus Notre Dame. I can assure you that one does not get it going. It's Washington, Bama. Been riding with the Huskies for a long time. They are currently sitting as the 5th team in, the rankings right now. So they're just outside the college football playoff, which is wild to me. Like, obviously, Michigan and Ohio State have to move, but Washington's win over Oregon is the first or second most impressive win of the entire year. I think Oregon might be better than Penn State. So they might have the best win on the season, and they're sitting outside the top 4. That's a little funky to me. And then versus Bama, who I'm on record as saying they might go on and win out the rest of the season on goofy 1-score type games. And Nick Saban's going to love life because he actually has to coach a team that's not perfect. Like, you watched Nick Saban lately. We're not talking about Bama outside this day. Have you watched him? He's doing the plays of the game kind of interviews. Like, this man is having the time of his life out there. And I think he loves that his team tries really, really hard, but they're just not perfect like they have been in the past. And I think he's loving it. Like, I think he loves these nail biters. Like, he's pissed when they lose and they get penalties, sure, but like, he's just loving the overall thing. So he's either about to retire or he's having the time of his life.
So there's 6 teams right now in the Power 5. Yeah, I was just double checking my work. There's 6 teams in the Power 5 that are undefeated currently. That's Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, Washington, Oklahoma. And they're ranked in that order in the AP poll as well. I would be surprised if that order, well, I don't know if I'd say surprised. I think I could see putting Washington ahead of Florida State into the college football playoff at that point when that first ranking does come out. Now it's going to depend on the result of games, but I think it's pretty that order is pretty close. Georgia keeps hanging on to that top spot in the AP poll for some reason, probably just because it's like, okay, they haven't lost, they haven't been pretty, but they haven't lost type of deal. So that's going to be interesting to see the movement there as well. And OU, a team that is undefeated, beating a Texas team, Maddie, that I don't know if we necessarily saw that game coming, but now they're going on the road, number 6 OU, to Kansas to kick off our barely bowl eligible watch schedule here. They're going on the road. Big noon kickoff on Fox in Lawrence, Kansas. I believe it's homecoming in Lawrence as well. So this is a big game for the Jayhawks.
Bold homecoming game. Jayhawks coming off a bye last week, I believe. Correct.
Yes,
I believe I'm correct. Yep. Yeah. So coming off a bye, they know Jason Bean's the starter. They had, I mean, I think they've known for a little while, right? But Jason Bean is the starter. They had the entire week to prepare for it. OU's coming off of a fight versus UCF, right? And so I think this matchup might be a little bit closer than one would think on paper, right? Like I know with Bean, a lot of Jayhawks fans don't love the team as much, but man, I don't know. The way this offensive system goes with what Jason Bean does, I really like it. Like they can get into the goofy triple option stuff with his athleticism, and then he's pretty good at doing throwbacks downfield, right? He's pretty good at rolling left or right and then throwing the deep ball down to the other side. And so it'll be interesting to see if this Brent Venables Oklahoma Sooners defense, which has been playing a lot better, can be sound enough, like can be technically sound enough to handle a Kansas offense it's hard to keep a cap on. Texas's talent the past 2 years has seemed to just completely whitewashed Kansas when they've played. It's just been too much. The talent's been too much. I don't know if the Sooners have as much talent as Texas does, just like raw athleticism, but they might be a little bit better coached, especially on the defensive side. So that's kind of the matchup. Does Venables have these guys ready for everything KU is going to throw at them offensively? People have gotten OU on the ground a little bit this year. So like that is the one thing that KU could try to rely on, pounding the rock, hitting those deep throwbacks, and really see what happens off of that.
Looking at the rest of KU's schedule this year, homecoming against Oklahoma, right? Then they go to Iowa State. They have Texas Tech at home, Kansas State at home, and then they go to Cincinnati to close out the season. Currently, the Jayhawks sit at 5-2. They need that one more win to be bowl eligible for the second straight season. I think they'll get it. Like I think they'll get that 6th win. I don't know if it'll be this week. But this Oklahoma team is incredibly interesting to me because I keep going back to like the Red River shootout game where it's like I didn't really anticipate them to be in it all that much, but they just like kept hanging around. They just kept staying in it, and then they ended up winning the game. And I think that like that has stuck with me. But Maddie, you mentioned last week with UCF. UCF was a team that Kansas blew out. Like Kansas, it was not a close game with Kansas. So I don't know if like what was going on there. If UCF has gotten better, I don't think UCF's quarterback played against Kansas. I think that might have been a part of it as well. But I don't. It's hard to play this game right with like opponents in terms of like especially with the Big 12 at this point it seems like. But you mentioned Jason Bean, and I'm curious your thoughts on just the whole Jalen Daniels situation because like. I don't know if he's going to play again. That might be dramatic, but it seems like every time he's got a shot to play, he's just not going to play again.
It seems like we're tracking for a Cam Rising type situation for Daniels right now, to where like every week they're like leaving it up in the air. But I wonder if internally they just know that it's not going to happen this year. And it's a back thing. And it seems, I guess last year it was the shoulder, not the back. But I don't know, there's the way people talk about this that like have far more connections than I do, not necessarily to Kansas and specifically just talking about college football. There doesn't seem to be a lot of optimism that like he's close or that he is going to be coming back. So like I'm interested to see kind of when he does come back, if he can come back. But like I said, I think for KU fans, like I think Jason Bean's more than good enough for this offense. I think it works really well with him. So like they still do have that chance. And I don't know what we do with the preseason Big 12 player of the year and Jalen Daniels until like we get real information.
Right. That's the thing. Preseason all Big 12 player of the year. And he has played what? 2 games? 3 games maybe?
3? Maybe 2.
3-ish?
Because he missed I don't think he played in the first one, and then I think he came back and played 2. Because I know he played against Illinois, and then it might have been the end of it after that. It's 2 or 3 games though. I mean, like that's all.
I mean, you had people out in Lawrence talking about Heisman for this dude going into the season, and Haven't seen that, but Maddie, 9.5 point dogs at home for Kansas. What are your thoughts here on this game? As you know, we look at Kansas; they are 3-4 against the spread. OU 6-1 against the spread this year, and I believe Oklahoma or Kansas has failed to cover the spread in 12 of its last 13 games as an underdog versus ranked teams.
So this is tough. I think that KU's offense is going to give OU enough problem. KU's offense is going to give the Oklahoma defense enough problems that they're going to find some offense. That run game with Devin Neal and Hinshaw and Bean is going to do well. They're going to find ways to hit explosives. I think that you can keep that OU defense kind of on their heels with the run game a little bit. So I do think they'll find offensive success. It really comes down to me, can guys like Booker and Jeremy Robinson really get pressure on OU's offense? Can they beat that Oklahoma offensive line? Guyton at the right tackle for OU's high-level draft prospect. Can these guys get pressure on him? I really like the Robinson-Guyton matchup. I don't think it dictates the entirety of the game, but it might dictate a little bit about this line. I'm going to take Kansas and the points coming out of the bye because, like I said, I really think their offense is going to give OU's defense a little bit of problems. I don't know if they'll win, and I just don't think OU has the athletes to just completely overwhelm Kansas like some other top programs do.
This is an interesting one because I just don't know how I feel about Oklahoma. And that's really what it comes down. Like, I know they're number 6 in the country. They're 7-0 when like everything points to them being good, but I'm just like not sold on it for some reason. And that's probably me personal problem, truthfully, when it comes to OU. I mean, they lead the Big 12 right now in terms of just like the standings because of beating Texas, obviously. But I'm going to take OU. I'm going to take the points in OU. I just feel like this could be, especially coming off of a game where UCF kept it close with them. I believe that game was in Norman too. They kept it close in Norman. They're going to be like this is going to be a y'all forgot type of game. We're still good. We're still here. Don't think about it. But again, I want to say I wouldn't be surprised if even KU came out and like maybe won this game. Like I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think if that happened. But just because, again, I want to reiterate, I don't know how I feel about Oklahoma. So, Maddie, let's move on to the afternoon game as we go to we're going to Salt Lake City, Utah. This is where College Game Day is at. College Game Day is at this game. We've talked a lot of Pac-12 this year, and deservedly so. Sad that this is I think it actually it's one of those things where you don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. A great year for the Pac-12 here as number 8 Oregon travels to number 13 Utah, who Utah we kind of written off. Truthfully, we're like, this Utah team, too bad. They can't be. They go to USC. They make Caleb Williams look goofy. They make that whole USC program look goofy. Utah, and I should have stuck to my guns on this, Maddie, last week. I should have stuck to it because I've been telling anyone who would listen that Cam Rising and that Utah team live rent free in USC. Like they cannot get over that hump of Utah. It wasn't even Cam Rising. Well, he wasn't out there. They didn't have
pig farming them.
They were. Oh my gosh. Utah again coming off of a huge win. This is good. This game's gonna be in Rice Eccles. So again, they're gonna host Oregon in Rice Eccles. This game's on Fox, so just keep your TV on Fox after you get done watching the OU Kansas game, and you'll get to see this game at 3 Eastern. But number 8 Oregon, number 13 Utah. Who we got?
Buddy, okay, so like let's start here. I think I'm like 1 for 4 on Utah games this year. I have no read on them. I've picked them to win and they've lost. I've picked them to lose and they've won. Like I can't get a good read. And like typically when this happens, you just say, Utah at home, Rice Eccles, they're going to big boy the opponent. They're going to beat them down and they're going to win. And if that happens, I'm not surprised. But here's the thing. Dan Lanning is Dan Lanning, and Oregon isn't building that team like they did under Chip Kelly. This isn't DeAnthony Thomas running around just trying to make everyone miss and just speed, quick. This is Dan Lanning bringing in that SEC type of physicality. Like Oregon is a physical football team. They went not in Utah. They hosted Utah last year and beat them in a physical game. Do I think they can do it again? Absolutely. Like it's definitely possible, but you got to go to Rice Eccles. You got to go in there. You got to go into that elevation. You got to go into one of the most difficult places to play and play the Mountain Iowa Hawkeyes. on their turf against the pig farmer, against the safety playing running back. Their backfield is a pig farmer and a safety right now, and they're putting it on USC. Like, I just don't, I don't have any reads. I have zero reads on this. I don't know what to do with Utah. Every time I pick a Utah game, I'm wrong. So, like, I just don't know what to do with this. I did say, though, like, I really do think Oregon is the one Pac-12 team that I think can handle the physicality. So, like, that's the one thing I might end up banking this on kind of when we get to the picks is I don't think they're just going to get run over like USC or other Pac-12 teams might if they had to travel there.
They put up 34 points on USC. They put up 34.
Did you hear Alex Grinch? He said they didn't know how to defend the running back wheel route from a safety because they hadn't seen him do it, despite the fact he did it in the last game. And then they said that they didn't know that Bryson Barnes could run, even though he just had like 100 rushing yards the week before. They didn't see either of those things on tape, according to Alex Grinch.
That dude's not going to have a job next year. He's going to be unemployed, or he's going to be in the NFL. Who knows? But either way, there's USC's kind of like in shambles right now, dude. Like in terms of just like as a program, shambles. You got Emmanuel Ocho out here telling Caleb Williams just to sit out the rest of the year. Awful take, by the way. Bad take. But back to Utah. Maddie, you know me. You've known me long enough. I'm partial to Utah, and they're one of the teams where I'm just like, man, death taxes in Utah. Utah finds a way to A, cause havoc in the Pac-12, and B, dominate the Pac-12. And they're one of those teams where, like, how are they number 13 in the country right now? They don't have their starting quarterback. They don't have their maybe second best, their best offensive player with the oh gosh, I forgot his name. Brent Youthy out there on the field. They don't have him. They've just been just so decimated with injuries, but they still find a way. And they're 6.5 point home dogs, by the way, at Rice Eccles. But it's Oregon. That's another thing. Oregon looks legit. They look real good this year. They look good. We've talked a lot about both of these teams. I feel like a decent amount on this program when it comes to Oregon. Bucky Irving has been
Irving. He was so good last week.
Yeah, he's been cooking recently. He made it onto the dog list a little bit later actually, after the Washington game, and they're cooking. I mean, I really like Dan Lanning, Kansas City guy. He's got to start at Park Hill South up north. Shout out to the Panthers up there at Park Hill South, and then he went down to Georgia. But man, 6.5 points at home for Utah there. We don't have to dive right into the picks, Maddie, unless you want to talk about anybody else. But I do feel like we've talked a lot about like the players of both of these teams on this program.
Yeah, I got a couple, just a couple little things. Like you mentioned Bucky Irving, and then Troy Franklin. Like those are the two best skilled players by far, probably the two best players overall in this game. And they're both skilled players for Oregon. And now it's hard to score on Utah, but when you have, I think, what is going to be a significant kind of advantage in the skill players, and then you can match the physicality, that's where things get a little bit dicey for me for Utah. So like I do think both, Irving and Franklin can have a quality or big impact on the game, maybe a pretty good outing. And then like kind of conversely, Utah's got a good pass rush, but there's no stars. Jonah Ellis has probably been the best guy, but the Oregon offensive tackle pairing of Josh Connerly and then a Johnny Cornelius, AJ Cornelius, I believe is what he goes by. Though those two tackles have been very good for them. Against Washington, they were very good. They've been very good all year. So like if Jonah Ellis can find a way to get pressure through those guys, make Bo Nix speed up his process, they have a chance. But I mean, I kind of mentioned it. I think Dan Lanning, the way he's built this team, can handle the physicality. And then you have the two best skill players on top of that. I'm going to ride with the Ducks. I think the Ducks are really good. I said whatever I normally would pick for Utah, I'm doing the opposite. I would take Utah home 99% of the time. So now we're going to pick against them at home because I can't put my finger on Utah. So we're taking the Ducks to go into Rice Eccles.
6.5 points. Just got to beat them by a touchdown is all.
Just need a tug.
Interesting. Utah has covered the spread in 8 of its last 9 October games at Rice Eccles. This year for the two teams, Oregon is 6-1 against the spread. Utah 4-2-1 against the spread. Oregon's been a pretty good covering team this season, but I gotta take the Utes. I'm gonna take the Utes at home, 6.5. I'm not gonna say they're gonna win, but I think they lose by less than a touchdown. I think that I'm going to take that. I gotta stick with my heart, Maddie. My heart
We're
is.
fighting this week. I like it. We've
We
been
are.
so in like lockstep almost every single week. So like we're fighting off the rip here. Let's go.
We might be fighting on this next one too, as the primetime game that we got on our watch schedule is an SEC one. Number 21, Tennessee travels to Lexington, Kentucky to take on the Wildcats. This game will be on ESPN, 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Eastern kickoff. Maddie, thoughts on this one?
I
Yes,
don't have a lot of
exactly.
thoughts on this one. This is a weird middle of the pack SEC matchup between two
Mhm.
teams that clearly aren't good enough to compete for the SEC, but aren't bad enough to be fun. And like neither one of them with Joe Milton playing quarterback for Tennessee and Kentucky just generally being Kentucky, there's like nothing exciting about either one. This Tennessee team has sucked out all of the excitement that they had. They were one of the most fun teams to watch last year. Now it's just gone because Milton can't play like QB at a functional level for an entire game. But Tennessee at least has firepower. Kentucky is like watching paint dry sometimes, and Tennessee's defense has been very good this year, but it's mostly the pass rush. It's mostly their pass D. Their run D's been fine, but like Kentucky, if you tell me Kentucky comes out and dominates this game on the ground, I'm not shocked. You tell me that Tennessee's game script puts them up 14 and then Kentucky has no chance in hell to ever catch up. Again, not shocked, but like I don't know like what to expect from this game because both these teams are just kind of like meh.
Meh is a good word. That was the word I was going to use with both of them. Looking at the SEC East right now, Kentucky is 4th. Tennessee is tied for 4th, essentially. Both 2-2 overall in the conference. Both have 5-2 records coming into this game. Kentucky 4-1 at home, and Tennessee, interesting enough, 0-2 on the road. So they've not been a very good road team this year. Both of their losses coming on the road. Kentucky, Kroger Field, tough place to play, especially at night. Missouri had to deal with that a couple weeks ago. They got off to a slow start. Were able to bounce back and come back. It would be huge for Mizzou, I believe, if Tennessee were to lose this game. So Missouri has the bye week. They play at Georgia. If they do beat Georgia, they'll be in pole position, right, to get the SEC East. But then they have Tennessee the next week, who I think everyone kind of anticipated in the SEC was going to be like the number 2, right, coming into the season. Like the SEC East, there's going to be Georgia, Tennessee, and then it's kind of a crapshoot after that of all the other teams between South Carolina, Kentucky, Florida, Missouri. But right now, as it sits, Missouri number 2 in the SEC East. You didn't think I was going to get out of here without mentioning Missouri being in a good spot coming into their bye week there. But this is an interesting one for me personally, just because I want to see how Tennessee stacks up against Kentucky. And with Tennessee still being on Missouri's schedule, I think that's going to be an interesting one. This is a rock fight in the middle of the SEC East, which, listen, hasn't been a good division in the SEC. It's been the bad one, and listen, I recognize that wholeheartedly. But when Missouri's good, it seems like the rest of the division is bad, which works out pretty well. But I do think this is an interesting one just to see how these two teams kind of counteract each other, I guess is the word I'm thinking of, because they have two like contrasting styles of football. Tennessee wants to play a different style of football than they're actually playing this year. When it comes to like defense and running the football, they don't really want to play football that way, but they are because that's only what's working. And, Kentucky obviously wants to run the football and get things done that way. Devin Leary hasn't looked that great at all this year. So a very game that I do think is going to be kind of meh, truthfully. And I know what you're thinking. You guys were like, hey, why are you talking about this game? Why do you have this on your schedule if you think it's a meh game? Well, there's not a lot of good night games in college football this week.
No, there's not. It was either this or Colorado UCLA, which, like, if I'm going to be honest, I'm probably going to have that one on the bigger TV than this one. But this one I think has bigger implications. It's not even like it's a lot, but like we're dealing with Tennessee is still trying to make a few waves. Kentucky beat down Florida, who is not a embarrassing team this year, much to different than what I thought. So like this game matters. It 100% matters. It belongs on here, I think, for the watch list, but like there was no other options either. Like that's kind of how it slid in here. Oddly, Tennessee has more rushing yards per game than Kentucky does. And it's not even particularly close. Tennessee is like a defense and run team. And then they throw the ball over the top inaccurately, but they do it. It's like, I'm taking Tennessee in this game. Ray Davis is really, really good, but he's inconsistent. Kentucky's had a hard time finding him consistency week in and week out. I think for Tennessee, that defensive front right now with Tyler Barron's been phenomenal, and he's going into the draft this year. The James Pierce is actually an underclassman, but he might even be better. Like the defensive end pairing of those two guys, if they get a lead, are going to give Kentucky absolute fits. Even if it's not a lead, I don't know. I almost trust Tennessee in a brawl here because they're running the ball very well. They're playing good defense. Their defensive front is very good. I think where you can beat Tennessee, as we kind of saw from Alabama, is chucking the ball downfield. And boy, Leary is not throwing the ball downfield on anybody. So like I'm taking Tennessee and laying the points.
His arm looks shot. He doesn't look that he has not look like old Devin Leary, like at NC State Devin Leary. But you mentioned Jalen Wright now 593 rushing yards. He's number 4 in the SEC. Ray Davis 781 rushing yards, number 2 in the SEC behind Cody Schrader. Not a big deal. James Pierce, the defensive lineman for the Tennessee Volunteers, 7 sacks in the SEC, which makes him, he has 7 sacks, makes him 3rd in the SEC is what I'm trying to say there. But he's been getting after the quarterback. A couple of stats for you, Maddie. I know you already made your pick. I know you picked Tennessee already.
That's okay. Talk me out of it.
Tennessee and both Kentucky are 4-3 against the spread, but Kentucky has failed to cover the spread in each of its last 8 games when playing with a rest advantage. Tennessee favored by 3.5 points in this game. I'm going to take Tennessee as well. Okay. I think Tennessee is better than Kentucky. I'm not sold on Kentucky. I would love to see this be a close game just to kind of give me a little bit more confidence going into the Tennessee-Missouri game. Who knows? But I'm going to take Tennessee as well. Let's move on to the wild card games as we've got an ACC showdown. As a top 20 ACC showdown, as number 20 Duke travels to Louisville, Kentucky to take on the Cardinals. That game is on ESPN at 2:30. So if you want another game on at the same time as Oregon, Utah, go ahead and throw that one on the ESPN on the other TV. All right, Maddie. Duke, Louisville. What do you like in this matchup?
I would certainly love to know, the health of Riley Leonard.
Yep.
He started versus Florida State. He clearly looked hampered, but he fought through it, and their offense clearly was functional with him. Not good, but functional. He goes out. Their backup comes in for the second week in a row. They really can't offense. If Riley Leonard plays, or if he doesn't play, or if he's even more hampered than he was, if he's more injured than he was last week against Florida State, I don't know. I don't know what this Duke offense can do. Louisville's defense has been really good this year. They get after the passer. They make it difficult. They don't give you anything easy, kind of like Duke's defense. And so, like with the health of Riley Leonard being so up in the air, I really think we were robbed of what could have been a really, really fun game. Like this game could have been really, really good. Louisville coming off of the bye, you know what I mean? It gives you a little bit of that they get a little extra rest. Duke's coming off a beatdown. I mean, it ended up being a beatdown at the hands of Florida State. They're clearly trending in the wrong direction because of some of the health stuff. Mike Elko has those guys punching above their weight class, but they're kind of running into a team that I think wins the same way. And if Riley Leonard's not playing or very hurt, Louisville somehow might end up with the quarterback advantage with Jack Plummer at the helm just because of the injury.
Jack Plummer. They're just basically Purdue from last year. I'm just messing around. We had some late line movement, Maddie. When we were filling out the sheet yesterday, the Louisville was favored by 4.5. They're now down to 6-point favorites in this game. That makes sense, yes. That might indicate how Vegas feels about Riley Leonard's health potentially. I think that's a really interesting one. You look at Duke 4-3 against the spread, Louisville 3-4 against the spread, but Louisville has covered the spread in each of its last 8 games at L&N Federal Credit Union Stadium. Would you have been able to pull that one out if I would have asked you where they played?
No.
I was going to say the Yum Center, but I think that's where Kentucky plays basketball. Or is that Louisville? Let me look that up real quick. Yum Center. No, it's Louisville.
That's fitting before Halloween parties start this weekend. Talking about the Yum Center.
Yeah, the
KFC.
Yum Center.
Well, that's something.
KFC Yum Center. Okay. Any players specifically that you're watching in this one, Maddie, before we get to picks? Or are you ready to roll right into
Yeah,
picks?
no, it's just the matchup, right? Okay, so Louisville has a fun running back in Jawar Jordan, very undersized guy. He's just fun to watch. Probably not a factor for the NFL, but Jabari Thrash has been their go-to guy. He's been their wide receiver when they need a big play, they need a third down play, anything they need. It is Jabari Thrash. He is a transfer. He came in there from Georgia State. I think this year was his first year there, and he's been everything for them. He's been exactly what you want. Duke's got a good secondary across the board. I mentioned Al Blades last week. This week, we're going to go with Miles Jones. He's number one. Duke has some corners that can play. Louisville wants to get the ball to Thrash. If they can, that's not good for Duke because he's a big player. He's averaging almost 17 yards per catch. He can do a lot with the ball, whether it's, after the catch or down the field. Louisville will scheme him up. So it'll be up to these Duke corners, Miles Jones, Al Blades, to kind of slow him down. If Louisville hits some explosives, I think it might be the wraps for the Blue Devils. I don't think they have the offense to battle back against a good Thrash game.
-6 for Louisville. I'm going to take the Cardinals in this one, I think.
Ooh.
I just with the injury of Riley Leonard still up in the air, I think that's what I'm going to take. I'm going to take Louisville on that one, Maddie. What do you got?
Oh, man. My gut says Louisville because we don't know what to do with Riley Leonard, because they're coming off the bye, because I think they're a pretty good football team.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I will not go against Mike Elko. It cost me last week. And the line was, I think, 14.5 for Florida State. If Riley Leonard plays that whole game, they cover. There's no chance they lose by 18 with Riley Leonard. I don't know if he's playing, but if he's not playing, they had all week to prepare. I'm taking the Blue Devils. I'm riding with Mike Elko to not lose by 6. When it was 4.5, I was going with Louisville for sure. But that late line movement, I'm going to take Elko and believe in him like I have all year.
We got another matchup of a ranked team, and this is the Pac-12 matchup. This is a late game, 10:30 p.m. Eastern.
My second favorite game of the weekend, by the way.
This is a good game. This is a strong game. Number 11, Oregon State travels to Arizona, who has been a kind of a spoiler this year in terms of teams for the Pac-12. They go to Tucson. That game's on ESPN again. You can just leave that TV on ESPN. It'll just roll right through all the hits pretty much. Number 11, Oregon State, Maddie, Arizona. The Cats have been scrappy this year. What do you think?
Nighttime in the desert, right? Like nighttime in the desert. We just saw the Huskies go there last weekend and like really, really struggle against Arizona State. Not even Arizona. And Arizona's been a much better, like Arizona's been good this year. That defense is playing really well. They've been getting everyone fits since they've had to switch over from Jaden DeLora to Noah Fafita. He's done a lot better of not turning the ball over. They're just simply controlling the ball better. They're not making the dumb mistakes. Not as many, maybe as many highlight plays, but not the dumb mistakes. And this defense and this run game are working very well for us. Like, I think this is a really, really fun matchup. The one qualm I have when I watch Arizona, what I really see from them is a defensive line that's really good. They get after the pass rusher with a host of underclassmen. Taylor Upshaw is like the senior. He transferred in from Michigan. But after that, they have a host of guys that are just freshmen, underclassmen, number 90, number 99. They are coming off the edge. They were giving Caleb Williams fits, right? Here's the thing. Oregon State's offensive line is very good. Like that's the one thing that's giving me a little bit of pause here is that Oregon State has the tackles that can handle going up against these guys. Oregon State might just be able to pull out the chainsaw and chop these guys down. Joshua Gray, left tackle. He was a guy that everybody talked about coming into this year, as being a draft pick. Then Talisi Fuaga, the right tackle, is even better. And he just balls guys. So it's a good test for the Arizona Wildcats because I want to buy in. I want to buy in on their future. I'm probably already in on, but even this year, I want to buy in. I just want to see how they handle the Beavs, who I think if we flip that one game versus Washington State, where Cam Ward and Josh Kelly and everybody played out of their mind, if we flip that to a win, they're undefeated. And I think we talk about the Beavs in an entirely different way than we do right now.
Oregon State also 5-2 against the spread. So they've been beating teams like what they're projected to beat them by. Arizona 6-1 versus the spread. So again, like this game is so interesting to me because Arizona went out and whooped Washington State in Washington State on their homecoming. They went out there and whooped them. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's time to take Arizona a little bit serious. Like maybe it's time to go and like think of them as a team that's pretty legit. That's a team that can cause a spoiler. again, they have an opportunity right here to cause a spoiler and to kind of get in the Beavs' way as they are. Oregon State's 3-point favorites going on the road to Tucson in Arizona makes sense. I think that if this game was probably played at Oregon State, they'd be a 6.5, 7-point favorite. But going to Arizona might cause a little bit of that, Maddie. I like what you said about their defensive line. I love a good 99 defensive lineman. Love a good 99 from a defensive lineman. And then the tackles for Oregon State too, man. Legit. They've got honestly, the Pac-12 this year has got some pretty solid offense. I know a lot of like talk has been about the quarterbacks, and rightfully so. They got a lot of great quarterbacks. But the offensive linemen in the Pac-12 this year have been really impressive to me.
Oh, man. I mean, Oregon has 2 that will play in the NFL most likely at some level.
Yes.
Their right tackle especially. We talked about them. Washington has 2. One of them might be a guard, but they still have 2. Oregon State has 2. Arizona on the other side, Jordan Morgan, very good offensive tackle. Yeah. Some people kind of have him projected as a late round 1 guy. I might think he's a guard, but like he's still a good offensive tackle. Like there's a lot of talent in the Pac-12 this year, and that's what makes them so fun. And like this game's a lot of fun. DJU has been playing pretty good for the Beavs. I think the Pac-12, college football is good when the Beavers are good because they just give you another one of those teams. It's kind of like Utah that just grind you out, and like K-State, and they just grind you out, and it just gets to be too much. Arizona's kind of on the path to that with Jed Fish right now. Like that's what their team looks like, but I don't know if they're ready for the Beavers to come into town and do that. I think the way the Beavers are playing right now, they feel it. They know what they have to do. So like, I'm going to take the Beavers in this game for that reason. I like the Wildcats. If they keep this game super close, if they pull this off, full on Wildcats believer. I think, but like right now I'm going to take Oregon State. I think this is kind of that matchup where the Wildcats try to do it their way and Oregon State's just a little bit better at doing it their way.
I agree. I think I'm going to go with Oregon State as well, but Arizona's got some pretty sick merch at homefieldapparel.com, and I don't know if you've seen it, Maddie. They've got some sick Wildcat stuff. Listen, the Beavers do too. They've got a lot. The Pac-12, Maddie, what we've come to find out, that they've got some good Pac-12 stuff at homefieldapparel.com.
And it's gone, and no longer exists.
Yeah, and it's gone, sadly. Did you see the report that they're going to do the Pac-2 next year, though? Like for a year, they're going to do the Pac-2. And have like a schedule.
Oh, do they just play each other 8 times?
They'll have a schedule pack with the Mountain West. So they basically will play the Mountain West, and then but they'll be under like the Pac-2 moniker of what conference they're in. They can no longer be a Power 5 conference at that point, right? Like I mean, if they merge with the Mountain West, they can keep the Pac-12 name. I'm sure the Pac-10 name. That's not going to be a Power 5 conference.
I hope it is. I hope they get to keep it. I hope they keep the prestige. I hope so. God, I want nothing more. I want nothing more than the Pac-2 to get an automatic playoff bid and a 12-team playoff.
Either Oregon State or Washington State is going to be an automatic bid. You're going to tell me that Boise State is going to be playing in a Power 5 conference? Fresno, San Jose State is going to be playing in a Power 5 conference?
Air Force?
Well, I can believe that. They're good. I can believe that one. Wyoming, Utah State, UNLV, Nevada.
Wyoming beats everybody that comes in there, so why not?
That's true. Dude,
Speaking of the Mountain West.
That's a tough place to play. Very good. Very good transition. Speaking of the Mountain West, our Sickos game of the week is a Mountain West game. That was an unintentional transition there. I just wanted to talk about the Mountain West, and look at that.
Here we are.
Late game. Here, you get two late games from us here as the 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern kickoff time. UNLV travels to Fresno State, who are 7.5-point favorites on Fox Sports 1. UNLV 6-1 against the spread. Maddie, Fresno 3-4. Thoughts on this game?
Buddy, this is like a battle of like not California and not Las Vegas, but like it's also Fresno and UNLV. Like, there's got to be something. This feels like it should have a name, like a title. Like a rivalry game that's not really, I don't know. It feels like it should be something because Fresno's been good for the last couple of years. Jake Haener is there for like 18 years and he was very good for them. Right. And like now these two teams, UNLV, Barry Odom shows up and this team's rolling. They have one loss. Yeah. Their one loss was to Michigan by only 28 points. They suffered the best loss to Michigan this year. And they probably had their signs. They beat everyone else they played. And so, like, I know this is a fun game. I'm surprised Fresno State's so favored by over a touchdown, just given like the resumes right now. But also, I think Fresno State has earned that. Ricky White, wide receiver for UNLV, Michigan State transfer. He's the one guy from this game that I kind of have my eyes on and maybe making some big plays. I'm not going to beat around the bush. It's the Sickos game. We don't spend a lot of time on it. Give me UNLV. I think Barry Odom's cooking. I think things are popping off in Vegas. We got UNLV shaping up to be that number 2 spot in the Mountain West and probably play against Air Force twice down the stretch.
Yeah, looking at the standings right now, Air Force 4-0 in the conference, UNLV 3-0. Fresno State tied with Wyoming, Boise State, and themselves, obviously, for third place in the Mountain West Conference. Listen, Barry Odom, Mizzou guy. I like what he's been doing over there at UNLV. Truthfully, he's been cooking. They got something going on. They also just got a $1 million donation from the Raiders. Don't know if you saw that. Something's going on over there in UNLV. If it's entirely legal, who's to say? But they're up to something there. And to do what he's done in like 1 year to get them where they are, hat tip to Barry Odom. Hat tip to a Mizzou guy out there. For them, but I think I am also going to take UNLV because I want that's the story. I want the UNLV story to be good. I do. I believe actually, Maddie. Before we go, there was an FCS playoff ranking poll that came out. If you want to talk about that, but
sure, if you got it,
let me pull it up real quick. I know it was sent to me in one of these group chats that I'm in that is all about college football. But our Vandals have kind of slipped a little bit. Our Vandals have fallen down. The FCS Selection Committee has revealed its current top 10. Number 1, South Dakota State. Number 2, Montana State. Number 3, Furman. 4, South Dakota. 5, Delaware. 6, Montana. 7, Idaho. 8, Sacramento State. 9, Western Carolina. And 10, Incarnate Word. Thoughts on that?
I mean, Montana State, I saw 2 offensive linemen essentially chuck some Vandals around. One of them into the sideline. Another one got, the Quentin Nelson teabag drag. So we're standing for Montana State right now. And then I'm always slightly partial to the Jackrabbits there of South Dakota State.
Pretty good, sure.
Love a good little Jackrabbit action. So this seems about right. That there's so many names on there that I recognize from year over year. Like you think that FBS has lacks parity, buddy. Wait till you get down to down there because it is the same 5 teams every single year.
There's one team on that list. There's one team not on that list that traditionally is on that list.
Listen. Jackrabbits have taken over.
The Jackrabbits have seemingly taken over.
They have tamed the bison.
And North Dakota State lost to South Dakota. The Coyotes. They lost to the Yokes. FCS drama is what we got here. And I know that's what everyone tuned into this podcast to hear.
That's why they're here 52 minutes deep.
If you're here 52 minutes deep into this show, this is why we watch FCS football. But Maddie, any final thoughts on this week's slate before we let the people go?
No, I think we're good. I think we kind of covered it all. This is a nice, tidy little barely bowl eligible here. This is a good week of games, but I wouldn't say it's the best weekend of games that we've had. Right. This is a little bit of a dip before I think we jump back up again next week, especially in the SEC. We got some SEC bangers coming next week. Mm-hmm. I think this is a good week of college football. Maybe not your best. It's nice that this kind of coincides, I think, with Halloween because, like we said, the primetime games, kind of mid. If you got some Halloween parties to do, got to take the kids out to some trunk or treat action or something, and you're missing a little bit of Colorado, UCLA, or whatever that SEC game that we were talking about, like, no big deal. You're back home before Oregon State, Arizona.
Yep. Dukes play on Saturday night. So
this is true. Shout out Dukes.
Shout out to Dukes. The ranked Dukes. Washington at USC next week. Going to be pretty good.
Betting the over already.
Yeah, I also have Oklahoma State. Now, Oklahoma State has not been very good, but still, rivalry game.
Oklahoma State, they're on a win streak, though. And they kind of figured it out, so I don't know.
Yeah. That could be an interesting one. Like, especially if Oklahoma wins, they beat KU. They take
it's the final time they're playing. Like, this is the last time they play, right? Like, for the foreseeable future.
That's at Oklahoma State, too. Oh, my gosh.
The Pokes are out.
Gosh. TV time for that, not announced yet. That's a week away. They don't have a time for it.
That's
the
true.
Big 12 does.
I wonder if they're trying to see. Yeah, I think they're probably trying to see like what each team, like if both teams are coming off a loss, like does it matter as much? I guess, but I don't know. The Big 12 likes to pick and choose where they put their biggest games. Like that's probably the biggest game for the Big 12 that week if they're both if they both win again.
Let me look again. Yeah, so the Big 12 has Oklahoma State, BYU at West Virginia, Kansas State at Texas, Kansas at Iowa State, Houston at
Kansas State, Texas. Actually, I mean Kansas State, Texas though. Those two teams are probably playing to play Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game, right? Like Texas can't lose that. Nor can K-State. It's like, those are your two biggest games. They're probably just trying to see what everyone plays out this week. The Big 12 does do that. They don't announce ahead of time like our Lord and Savior's the SEC.
It's wild. The SEC does 2 weeks in advance, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Because we knew when Missouri, Georgia was and when LSU, Bama was like Monday. this past Monday.
Interesting to note, though, Maddie, before we go, I know I said I was going to close this podcast 4 minutes ago, but I haven't yet. Iowa State is 3-1 in the conference right now in third. Like
their quarterback has been balling. The quarterback's figured it out. Matt Campbell got in a fight with a fan and had to be held back, and the Cyclones just rallied around him. That fan was a plant. That was a Matt Campbell. That was his uncle. He just decided to call him out, and he just used that to motivate his team.
So right now, second place. I'm sure there's tiebreakers in here, right, that I'm not looking at, but like Texas, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. That's second place right now in the Big 12.
The Big 12 is so wild, and like last year it was, but it was fun. This year it doesn't even seem like fun. It's just wild.
It is just wild. That's a good note.
Just wild.
Maddie, as this has been another. Feels like it's a pretty good episode. Let us know in the comment section if you thought it was a good episode. Felt good off the hand, you know.
I agree.
Episode of Barely Bowl Eligible here on KCSN's Always Draft Season channel here. Be a friend, tell a friend about the channel, about the show. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. So that's Maddie Lane. I'm Tucker Frank, and we will talk to you guys next week.